Hi everyone. I'd like to provide some context for this presentation. The goal of ENGAGE is to increase the capacity of engineering schools to retain undergraduate students by facilitating the implementation of research-based strategies to improve the day-to-day educational experience. Our focus is on first and second year students because, as you also probably know, these students are most likely to switch out of engineering. The ENGAGE strategies are to improve and increase interaction between faculty and students, using everyday examples in engineering to teach technical concepts, and the topic of today's webinar, Strategy 3, improve spatial visualization skills of students with weaker skills. So we've selected these strategies because they improve student interest and engagement in engineering. So now I'm delighted to introduce today's presenter, Dr. Sheryl Sorby.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. A recent report just came out from the National Science Foundation, and the title of the report is called Preparing the Next Generation of Innovators. And in this report, they bring out that innovators typically have strong spatial skills as well as strong verbal and math skills. And throughout this report, they express the need to look merely beyond verbal and math skills when identifying STEM talent because spatial skills are so important to success. This is the test we give during freshman orientation at Michigan Tech. The purpose of the test is you have an object on the top line here. This object has been rotated in space. You need to rotate this in space by the same amount and then choose what it would look like if it underwent the same rotation. And in this case, the answer to this is D. So at Michigan Tech, we test our students during freshman orientation, our engineering students that is, and approximately 10 to 15% of our students fail that Purdue test, the test that you took the question from previously, during orientation. Approximately about 10% of the male students fail the test, but nearly 1/3 of the female students, and sometimes it's been as high as 40%. So you can see that this is a problem that really impacts women more than it does men. And from studies conducted by the Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation, they tested 64,000 professionals who were out there working in the field, and they found that the engineers here are at the left end here along with the architects right next to them, but the engineers and architects need to have the best developed spatial skills compared to all these other occupations, and most of the things on the left end here are all within the STEM disciplines. The gender differences are robust and consistent. We've found this time and again. Like I said, at Michigan Tech, we test our engineering students every year during orientation, and you can see we have data going back to 1996. And the other thing you need to know is that this dot here represents about 100 students, and this dot here represents about 700 students. So this gender gap here between men and women is highly, highly statistically significant, and you can see it goes along pretty much every year. We have the same gap in spatial skills between men and women. So as I said, we got funding from the National Science Foundation in 1992 to develop a course. We got a second grant in 1998 to develop multimedia software and a workbook. We've been offering a spatial skills class at Michigan Tech since 1993 without fail. And from the period of 1993 to 2008, students who failed the Purdue test during orientation were encouraged to enroll in the course, but they weren't required to. Based on the data that we have, the engineering chairs at Michigan Tech made a change starting in 2009 so that now all students who fail the Purdue test are required to enroll in the spatial skills course. And we define failure as scoring 60% or lower on the Purdue test. The course looks like this. We meet for one 1.5-hour lab session each week. It's a 1-credit course. We start with a short mini lecture of 10 to 15 minutes. Then the students will work through the software module for that day in teams of 2 typically, and they complete the workbook pages for the remainder of time. Most of the time they do that as a kind of a team effort also, but not always. This is what the software looks like, and I'm showing you this because you can see then the types of topics that we offer in the class. We do isometric drawings, orthographic drawings, we do rotations, and combining solids. And so this is pretty much the outline for the course. We do one of these modules each week. If we look at gains on this test, the Purdue test up here, the original course was when Michigan Tech was on quarters. This is from 1993 to 1999. The modified course is when we were on semesters, and this data is actually just from 2000 to 2002. We see similar results nearly every year. But you can see that the students started at about a 50% and they ended up in the mid-70s at the end of the spatial skills course. And what I'd like to point out about this is that these numbers here, this middle 70% average, this is approximately what the average is for engineering students, for all engineering students when we test them during orientation. So we basically are taking students who are way behind in their spatial skills and bringing them up so that they're about average with their peers in the engineering courses. And you can see the significance of the gain, highly statistically significant. Through every year we get a statistically significant gain. We've done several longitudinal studies to look at the long-term impact of this course, and the types of things we've looked at are grades and retention rates. For students who failed the Purdue test and then went on to enroll in the spatial skills course, what we have found is that they earned better grades in a variety of courses listed here: calculus as well as pre-calculus, chemistry, computer science, engineering and graphics, physics, and that their overall GPA is higher when compared to students who failed the Purdue test but did not enroll in the course. So you can see from this data right here, these are the students who enrolled in the spatial skills course. These are the students who, again, failed the Purdue test but did not enroll in the spatial skills course. These are our students with weak spatial skills. They had a statistically higher grade in all of these courses, except chemistry is not so significant as the others. And they ended up with a higher GPA than the students who had weak spatial skills and didn't go through the intervention. We also looked at the students who failed the Purdue test and enrolled in the course and compared them to, the students who failed the Purdue test and did not enroll in the course, but also those who passed the Purdue test with a score between 60 to 70%. So they kind of got it. They were a D student in spatial skills, but they did pass with our cutoff. And you can see, again, these students who had the spatial skills training had significantly higher grade point average or average grades than the students who passed the Purdue test with a marginal score between 60 and 70%. And they're, again, much higher than the students who failed the Purdue test and did not enroll in the course. If we look just at the computer science, you can see that the students who took the spatial skills course, who needed it, had an average grade of just above a B in the course, and the students who passed with a marginal score had about a C+, and the students who failed got a solid C in the course. And you see the same kind of trend in their overall GPAs. So some of you might be out there saying, yeah, but there's self-selection bias in that, because prior to 2009, the students who enrolled in the course chose to do so. So I have some very preliminary results, and the reason I say they're very preliminary is that we've only looked at a few grades and a few courses. We are going to be continuing this and hope to publish on this in the coming months. But let's look at the data when we don't have the self-selection bias. Again, the students who failed the Purdue test and underwent the spatial skills training did better in one of their engineering courses as well as in their calculus course than the students who marginally passed the Purdue test with a score of 60 to 70%. As I said earlier, we also looked at retention rates in our longitudinal studies. And again, these are some of the general findings that we obtained. So students who failed the Purdue test and enrolled in the spatial skills course were retained both at the university and within engineering at higher rates than those who failed and did not enroll in the course and those who passed with a marginal score of 60 to 70%. And these results are particularly true for women. For the students who took the course, they stayed in engineering at about 65% compared to about 40% for the students who failed and did not take the spatial skills course. The students who failed the Purdue test and took the course, these are their retention rates within at the university, and for the people who passed with a score of 60% or higher, these are their retention rates. These are not statistically significant differences. However, for the women who failed the Purdue test and did not take the course, we do see a statistically significant difference between these students and these students. For the men, we see similar trends. However, none of these are statistically significant. However, they are encouraging that we also appear to be retaining more men through this spatial skills intervention. So in conclusion, well-developed math and verbal skills are readily recognized as being necessary to success in engineering. According to this recent publication by the NSB, perhaps we should also add spatial skills to this list. We, at the university, or at my university anyway, we do not encourage students not ready for calculus to enroll in calculus for their first semester. Shouldn't spatial skills training be available for those who need the help? And at Michigan Tech, we believe that we have helped students be more successful in engineering by offering them an opportunity to develop their spatial skills. So based on all these results, what can you do or what should you do? One of the things that you should think about doing is assessing the spatial skill level of your incoming engineering students. And through this assessment, you will identify those who have weak skills and target your efforts just at those students. What would I recommend that you don't do? I wouldn't provide spatial skills training to all of your students. Those who don't need it may be bored, and those who do need it may become even more discouraged. If they're in the class and they see that something is super easy for somebody else in the class, they might start to have feelings of self-doubt, and what's called their self-efficacy will be diminished. Self-efficacy being just your internal belief that, yes, I can do something. And I would not offer voluntary spatial skills help sessions because it has been shown time and again throughout educational research, not just me, but people in math and in chemistry and other places, that voluntary supplemental instruction never works. You only get a few people who attend regularly. And if you're going to do something, I would say you would want to do it in the most effective way. Formats that you might consider for helping students develop spatial skills: offer a course like we do at Michigan Tech, a course for credit though. You could have required supplemental instruction sessions or required tutoring sessions, similar to requiring tutoring sessions for students with weak math skills, if your university allows you to do that. Not all of them do. You could provide spatial skills training as part of a summer course or a summer bridge program. One other thing is you could integrate spatial skills training into a required course, but I would only use that approach if most of your students have weak spatial skills and not only if a small percentage have the poor spatial skills, because again, you don't want the students who have the weak spatial skills, which at Michigan Tech is about 10% of the student body, to feel even more discouraged by watching people have fun and doing things that is very easy to them. And here's my final reflection, and I hear this all the time: engineering faculty don't want to add one additional credit to an already full curriculum. So I'm leaving you with a question: which is better, asking students to take one extra credit that improves their chances of success in engineering by a significant margin, or is it better to ignore the problem and hope your students survive to graduation? And in the long run, which one is really more costly? If the students leave your university and they're not spending those tuition dollars, that is a true cost to the university. Further, it's a cost to the individual because now they might be studying, they might never finish college, or they might be studying something that they're not as interested in.